Welcome to our Cyberwise Chats, where we talk about the challenges of raising and teaching digital kids. I'm Diana Graber, author of Raising Humans in a Digital World and founder of Cyberwise and Cybercivics. Join every episode with Dr. Pamela Rutledge, who's the director of the Media Psychology Research Center. Our always lively conversations tackle topics like cyberbullying, screen time, TikTok, and everything in between. We've got some great guests and promise each chat will give you the tips, tricks, and confidence you need to help kids use technology. Well, welcome everyone to today's Cyberwise Chat. Whether you're here live with us on the webinar or listening to us on the podcast, we're happy to have you. I'm Diana Graber, author of Raising Humans in a Digital World and founder of Cyberwise and Cybercivics, here with my partner in crime, Dr. Pamela Rutledge, who is the director of the Media Psychology Research Center. And today we're going to talk about why your kids should learn coding now. So we are really honored and excited to have as our guest today, Bill Marsland, who is the Director of Education at Code Ninjas, which I need to learn what they're all about. He's going to tell us in just a moment. This is a unique topic for us. We have not covered coding yet. And I, for one, am a big advocate of it only because I hear from my students about coding. And for example, every year when I walk into the 6th grade class and say, we're going to learn cybercivics, how to use technology wisely and safely there. And, invariably there's a group of kids that say, are you going to teach us how to code? And unfortunately, it's not something that we do in our curriculum, but I always turn the kids onto one of the many online platforms where they can learn coding. And one year I had a boy who wrote down what I told him to do. And his mom told me every night after he finished his homework, he would spend an hour every night learning how to code. And at the end of the year, he came back to me and said, well, I did what you said and look what I made. And I'm just amazed at just how excited some kids get about coding. So we're going to find out why today. But first, I want to point you to a really great article that Pam wrote about the benefits of learning this skill at every age and stage. It's on our website, but Pam can tell you where you can find all her great articles. Pam, can you fill people on that?
Yeah, well, and like Diana, I wasn't terribly familiar with coding, so I wanted to do a little bit of a deep dive from the psychological point of view so that I would be prepared to understand what Bill's going to tell us. The article is at drpam@substack.com, and it's talking about why your kids should learn to code. And one of the questions that I really want to take up, Bill, is everyone saying, oh, they shouldn't bother to learn to code anymore. AI is going to do everything for us, which is obviously a little bit of an overstatement. But what you will find in the article is how coding applies to different age groups from a developmental point of view, which I think Bill will really touch. But I think the place to start, which is where I started, is what is coding?
Well, hello, everyone. And thank you for that question. Coding is any type of communication with a computer. It's where you have to learn the language that computer is going to be able to understand, and then being able to use that language to get the computer to do what you want to do. So it's essentially just communication. And sure. I was like, I can keep going.
No, I did respond to you right away because, as I promised, I would check the Q&A and the chats. And I thought, we have a question so far, but it says, hello from Fort Worth, Texas. So just wanted to, hello back.
Yeah, hello.
Okay, so if that's what coding is, are there different kinds of codings and languages? I know there are, but could you explain that to me?
Yeah, really, I like to think of computer science as this idea where we lay this foundation for all the different all the different computational ways of communicating. And then there are so many different programming languages that they all sort of use those same foundations. We often hear that sometimes parents say like, oh, I want my kid to learn Python, or I want my kid to learn how to do this. But truly what's important is that kids are learning the basic foundations of coding, because then those transfer to learning all these different languages and platforms that do exist. The reason there's so many different coding languages is because they all do different things, or they all have very specific functions. Like I always like to think of Python as a great language to learn if you're interested in data science, whereas JavaScript, which is something we teach at Code Ninjas, is a really great way to get into web app development or game development. And so different coding coding languages have different functions, but they all follow similar rules and have similar foundations, such as using algorithms and control structures, such as loops and conditionals, that once you learn those, it's really easy to apply to different coding languages.
I think so. What really struck me is how the foundation of all this sort of computational thinking, um, can be done with even out a computer. In other words, you
Yeah.
can take kids with arrows on cards and have them start to understand what it means to have an algorithm, a rule about how you get from one side of the room to another, or what happens when you turn around. And so it becomes a very powerful way of teaching linear logic.
Yes, absolutely. And it's really powerful to be able to make computer science tangible, because so many kids do want to learn kinesthetically and they want to get their hands into it. And sometimes just reading code on the screen doesn't always translate into those concepts and understanding the concepts. Whereas a hands-on activity is great whether a kid is in pre-K or they're taking an AP course in high school. Hands-on activities with computer science are encouraged all the way across the curriculum and are such a powerful way for kids to really embody what these coding concepts mean.
So
Especially before they can read.
Yeah,
right. I'm going to ask you a question that's not on our list because I just
sure,
thought of it and I
Oh,
need the answer to this. So, can you describe like what a first lesson in coding might look like?
sure. I think probably the most traditional one is to have this very typical phrase, it's "Hello world" appear on the screen, because really that first experience in coding is to just have that experience of seeing that you can type something into a coding environment and it will produce something. It will have an output. So you can create an input where you're telling a computer, print something on the screen, and then have the output of actually seeing it appear on screen. And that can be done in any coding language, whether it's an icon-based block language like Scratch Junior, a block-based language like MakeCode Arcade. You could do it in Python, you can do it in JavaScript. It's kind of a traditional like first step in computing, just to have some input and then have that output.
so that sounds like that Code Ninjas was really focusing on sort of middle elementary and up, at the point when people are sort of functionally literate in terms of their ability to read and write.
Yeah, that's partially true. We also do have programs for kids who are 5 to 7, where we are focused on pre-readers and beginning readers, where they can do things that don't involve text and don't involve a heavy focus on reading, whereas instead it's focused on exploratory, and just having that experience and exposure to coding, where they can play with these little blocks that fit together like puzzle pieces, but they only have icons on the blocks. So they're not responsible for reading the code, and they're definitely not responsible for typing code, because that does, you're right, get into much more upper elementary or middle school.
I was thinking how great that is for kids who have different learning styles,
Yeah.
hands-on thinkers or don't like to read a bunch of stuff, how empowering it is for them. When you start teaching them these skills, like how long does it take for them to be proficient enough to actually make something or do something?
I love that question, because my thought on this is that that first lesson, a kid can be proficient in typing in some code to make something happen. And I think that's the most important part about teaching computer science or coding, is that you want kids to feel like they can do something immediately, like they've learned something that can get that immediate result. Because you don't want it to just be like, oh, you have all of this work to do before you can actually make something satisfying. You want it to be like, yeah, let's make something cool today. And then let's build off of that tomorrow and build something else, and just kind of continue that ongoing spiral to cover different concepts and to continue building on projects. Um, to truly answer your question, I do believe like, there are certain foundational concepts that are important to learn. And I would say like that could take a year or so to learn, especially focused on like one language. Um, it would probably take about a year or two. We like to think that at Code Ninjas, our programs really do kind of continue to evolve, and they teach those foundational concepts, but then continue building upon them and changing the language and helping students learn how to create like a full program, like a fully robust program. And so we can take that initial knowledge that takes about a year to gain and then continue growing it and building on it throughout their experience at Code Ninjas.
You know what I love about this whole process in coding and computer science is that it really takes learning from being this is a right or wrong answer to an open mindset rather than a fixed mindset. So, Carol Dweck and all of that stuff about
Yeah.
implicit learning and implicit motivation. But what you're really doing is you're empowering kids to not just try things, but if it doesn't work out right, you just go back. And I think that's one of the beauty of gaming in particular is that no kid is discouraged because they hit a wall. They just learn how to climb the wall. And I think that in coding is the same way, that it, if the little turtle doesn't end up where you want it to, then you go back and experiment to see how it is that you need to get them there.
Yeah, exactly. And it's something that it just grows with you. As you're learning more, you can do more sophisticated things. But at the time, like, yeah, if you want to be, and we encourage kids at Code Ninjas to always be proud of every little achievement that they make, because it's not a little achievement. Every little thing is a major milestone on that step in their coding journey.
Yeah, it's so empowering too, because that story I told you at the beginning about the boy that taught himself to code, there's more to that story because I got him in sixth grade and then our curriculum goes through eighth. In eighth grade, all the kids start using different digital tools to do presentations. And there was a girl in the class that was having trouble with her tool because it wouldn't do audio the way she wanted it to do. So the coding boy said, I can fix this. And all of a sudden he's at her computer and he's in the back end and he's writing code. And all the kids are like, it was like he was a magician, all the kids are like, whoa, how did you learn that? He goes, remember Mrs. Graber told me that site in sixth grade? Well, I did it every night and here's what I can do now. And it was like magic, so super empowering.
So how many, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I would say like that's such a great story because it's this idea that it feels like it's magical, but it's really not. And I love that that student realized like I have the power to understand this and control this, and that's why it's so important to learn to code, because we don't want kids thinking that the devices in front of us that we spend so much of our time on are magical, because they truly work with code and you just have to understand how to communicate with the device. So it's so powerful that that student had that experience and hopefully inspired the other students to want to learn to code themselves. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's cool.
Yeah, I wonder how many kids show up at Code Ninja and say, I want to learn to build a mod for Minecraft.
Many. And it's really cool to see like what brings a kid into Code Ninjas. I love to use the phrase affinity space. I think that's really powerful and impactful for kids who have different interests, to have a space where they can come and be with others who can, be of a like mindset, but also foster them to grow in that interest. And so a kid might come in and say, like, I want to learn a mod to Minecraft, and they sign up for a camp about modding in Minecraft, and then say, like, well, actually, that was really interesting. I want to try another camp, or actually, I'm interested in enrolling in your core program because that was really cool, and I now want to be a part of this environment. I want to learn to code. I want to learn to create my own games. I love the idea that a lot of kids come to Code Ninjas or come to coding in general because they love to play video games, or they love the online gaming, but Code Ninjas gives them that opportunity to actually create their own games themselves. And there's so much power when we move from just being a passive consumer to an active creator. And that's what coding unlocks for kids.
I love that. Oh, you're speaking our language.
Right. Yeah. I was just thinking that this is the fundamental digital literacy, because kids are learning how technology actually influences behavior and directs behavior. They're learning what an algorithm is and how an algorithm can get somebody to do something. And so now this isn't like a black box to them, and they're probably more sensitive when they're being manipulated or persuaded. They're going, oh, I recognize that feedback loop. So I think that it's incredibly powerful in that way. Even though we don't say learning to code is fundamentally digital literacy, it is those very same things at the core of it that create digital literacy.
Yeah, very much so. That's strongly my belief. That's strongly the belief of Code Ninjas. We believe that this is such an integral part in a kid's experience, and that it is part of a new literacy. It's so important that kids are realizing that this is something that is this is part of their life. In fact, kids who are in school now, always has been part of their lives. And so we don't want kids to miss out on that, because then it just widens that digital divide, and we don't want kids to fall into that gap. We want them to be prepared, knowing that, you know, coding and technology in general is going to be such a big part of, whatever they're doing in the future, even outside of STEM fields. Coding is just something that it's important for kids to know and understand and learn and just have a little bit of literacy around.
Yeah, there was an interesting study I think Common Sense Media did a few years back about kids either just consuming the media they
Yeah.
use or participating with it, and they found that very few kids actually participate or make things or create. And I always found that so heartbreaking because they have such incredible tools at their fingertips and so much power with that. And unless we teach kids how to use that or empower them with the knowledge, they're going to just be these mindless consumers, which is not what we want to bring into the digital world, because we need their ingenuity, and they're always going to be smarter than the next AI, and we want to have the power to be that way. So I'm not going to ask your question, Pam. I'm going to let you ask them your AI.
Oh, no, but what you're describing also is really fundamental skills for math and science. And so I don't know if parents realize that when a kid is learning to code, they're learning a way of thinking that is immediately applicable to their math class or their science class. But so here's my big question. A while back, and I realized it was sort of a year-old meme, but a friend forwarded a techie fellow saying, in 5 years, nobody's going to be writing any code. AI is going to do everything. And so what do you say to parents when they say, is this still really something that my kid should learn?
That is a great question, and it's one that we hear regularly at Code Ninjas, and I'm sure computer science teachers everywhere are hearing this question. I'd like to think of it this way. I regularly like to use ChatGPT and, sometimes give it a prompt and ask it to populate like a paragraph about something for me. And that paragraph is never good enough for what my needs are. I need to have some critical way of being able to read through that paragraph that ChatGPT has given me, either then figure out how I want to rephrase my prompt to get a better paragraph, or just take that text that ChatGPT gave me and modify it to actually meet the needs that I want. The same is true of code. And I regularly will, check code using ChatGPT or some of the other AI chatbots that are out there, and it will give me something. But I need to have those skills too, to know how to read that critically, to know how to actually take a look at the code and see if it's actually meeting the needs that I wanted, if I need to change my prompt, if there's something I can take from that code and add on to it. In fact, a lot of AI chatbots that are connected to code won't even give you the full answer. They often will give you some starter code and then say, continue building out this code and, add these elements or do this yourself to make it what you want. But it won't always give you exactly what you need. And so it still is important that kids, or that anyone truly, can have some background knowledge so they know what they're looking for. They know how to they know how to think critically about it, and then they know how to take it and add it to whatever that they are working on, and ensure that it does work correctly. So we're still not at a place where AI can fully replace the need to code. It's wonderful that AI can be used to, create some shortcuts or some fast tracks. So perhaps maybe you're not writing some redundant code that you've had to write before. You can grab some of that from AI. Or perhaps, yeah, you're looking to learn something and you're not quite sure how to do something yet. And so AI can give you some inspiration about how to do something and maybe push your own thinking a little bit. So there's some really wonderful uses of AI, but it is definitely not yet at a place where it can fully replace the human component of coding.
Yeah, and
I
I
don't
think
think it. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I think it misses the point too that you brought up so well in your article, Pam, about the other skills kids are learning when they're learning to code. It's not about the code. Sometimes it's about learning all these other wonderful, logical thinking skills and adaptability skills that they're getting from that task.
And I love the example of Chat GPT because, I mean, it really illustrates, I mean, and I've used it on a number of occasions, and it sometimes just makes things up, you know.
Yeah.
But so you actually have to have some knowledge and expertise to be able to evaluate the output you're getting. But in a way, using Chat GPT is a form of coding because you're saying, give me a paragraph about Christopher Columbus and write it in a, like you're a country western singer, and you know, you're giving it all of these parameters to get an output. And if we don't know what's going in, we can't evaluate what's coming out. So, you know, it's this sort of call it Skynet, you know, fears that people are, you know, that computers are going to take over, but computers are never going to have human judgment.
Right. And
They'll be really good, but not, yeah.
it's almost like when I saw that video, I thought that's like telling a kid, don't bother learning to write because Chat GPT will write everything for you. I mean, it's sort of the same analogy. And it's like, really? So what's our purpose here? You know?
Right. Or don't learn math because there's calculators, which, you know, we heard back in the day, right? And it's like, that's not how it works, right? You have to understand why you're doing the math, why you're writing the code, why you're giving these instructions in order to get out what, you know, something useful and positive.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And calculators have still not fully replaced our ability to do math. And so, yeah, I think people get excited, and I appreciate that. And people are early adopters and want to rush forward with this, and I respect that and appreciate it. But yeah, there's still a lot for kids to learn and a lot for kids to digest because a lot of kids aren't even yet to that place where they can read code. So to just type in a prompt in ChatGPT is going to give them something they don't even understand, which would just result in a lot of poorly written code out there. And that's definitely not the direction we want to head.
Yeah. So here's a little nuts and bolts. Tell us exactly where Code Ninjas is, where they are, and how you sign up, and all the nuts and bolts about your company.
Yeah, absolutely. So Code Ninjas is a franchise-based company. So there's a lot of independently owned franchise locations around the US, Canada, and the UK currently, though we are looking to expand even beyond that. We currently have just under 400 locations across almost all of the states in the US, across most of Canada, and then, yeah, widely across the UK as well. And we are a very intentionally in-person experience because we do believe that even though a lot of our curriculum is self-paced, there's so much power in the community of kids coming together, working with instructors. We do have instructors who we call code senseis, who are present in our centers, and we keep a really low student to instructor ratio. So instructors are able to circulate and have that firsthand experience with the kids as they're going through the curriculum to jump in and support, answer questions, to help debug or troubleshoot as needed, or even just to be a cheerleader. That's probably the most important part about being an instructor is just being a cheerleader when a kid does hit that bump or where the kid needs just a little bit more encouragement to continue persevering. So yeah, there's so much power to the kids coming into the centers that is one of the primary facets of our program. We have our core programs where kids who are 5, 6, and 7 can be part of our junior program, which is specially designed for kids that age. And again, focused on pre and beginning readers, but some really engaging hands-on activities, a lot of exposure, just a lot of fun. And then for kids who are 8 and up, they get to be part of our Create program. We are Code Ninjas, so we were initially inspired by martial arts, and we have a belts system similar to martial arts. So kids start at white belt, they progress all the way up to black belt, which is this culminating experience, which is really cool. It's an opportunity where kids create their own game in the Unity platform, which is a professional game development software. And they then get to publish this to a Code Ninjas website of all of our black belt projects, and it's highly celebrated in their locations. Lots of places, lots of centers will invite in local media and local politicians and families to celebrate that achievement. I kind of think of it as akin to like reaching Eagle Scout and scouting, where this is like the pinnacle of the experience of learning to code. And yeah, and you walk away feeling like, yeah, you did something really successful, really great. It looks great on those college applications. But truly, it's just about having a space where kids can come, learn to code and be with like-minded peers and just really enjoy this process while also learning something as they go.
I like that they're working in unity when they get up to that level, because that's a industry sort of standard, not just for coding, but for the entertainment industry and creating
Yeah.
virtual environments and all of that. So that familiarity really gives them a leg up when thinking about next steps and things that interest them.
Do you
Yeah.
see kids go into occupations because of Code Ninjas?
Absolutely. In fact, we even see a lot of our kids when they finish, they often then want to give back. And so they either become volunteers or interns at the dojo themselves, or they become full instructors. They become coded senseis because they want to teach. And then they often end up going to college and studying computer science. Yeah, I've been out to lots of different locations where I've met some of the high school age staff in these centers who are so excited about going on to college, or many who are in college and working at Code Ninjas as a part-time experience, because they're so passionate about these fields, and yeah, they want to continue that work. And so Code Ninjas is just part of that.
That's great. Um, I'm going to ask the last question, Pam, unless you want to ask, because I'm real
Yeah.
curious.
Go
Okay.
ahead.
So, uh, do you have data you must on the outcomes that you get, like that maybe relate to their math skills or other things, like data that shows the benefits of what the kids are learning at Code Ninjas?
Yeah, not so much at Code Ninjas. We haven't looked at the correlation between math and reading scores and what kids are doing at Code Ninjas, but I do know just in general there are lots of studies being done as kids are progressing through coding education across the US and across other countries, and it's becoming more of a district-wide mandate or even a national mandate. We are seeing that there's research being done about how there's both the technical skills that are helping kids become better at math and at literacy, but also those soft skills that kids are learning, the perseverance, the logical thinking, the problem solving skills have these direct applications. Don't have specific data in terms of a research study, but we do hear lots of stories from parents who talk about how their child, came to Code Ninjas and it just ignited something in them where they then changed as a student and became more excited about school and became more excited about the problem solving aspects of things that they were working through in school, or just in general became more engaged in their school community because they'd finally found something that spoke to them and resonated with who they were and their own interests. And that just unlocked some potential in them. We even hear this about parents who have children of diverse learning abilities who, coding just unlocks something for them in a way that, transpires throughout the rest of their academic career. And so it's been really rewarding to know that what kids are doing in terms of coding really does have benefits that cross well beyond the coding sphere.
Yeah, and if you look up at the bottom of my article on Substack, you'll see several academic articles talking about it, and the two that made me most excited, Bill, and I'm sure you're familiar with this stuff, is one is how important these coding experiences can be for women and girls, particularly in terms of they're introducing STEM, changing their identity, making them feel like they fit in a STEM environment. And the other that was a surprise to me, but I thought it was quite interesting, is that kids who learn how to code, it really helps offset problematic gaming. And maybe it's understanding how it works and how you're being manipulated, or maybe it's just funneling energy in a different direction. But I thought that was a remarkable finding.
Yeah, that's very much true. And at Code Ninjas, we're really interested in that connection with female students, with girls, and with students who are from backgrounds typically underrepresented in technology. We want to make sure that those kids come into Code Ninjas and feel seen, feel like Code Ninjas is a place for them. Actually, being that it's Women's History Month, we have a partnership with Girls Who Code currently. And we also have a long-standing partnership with the folks at Microsoft's Make Code Arcade, and are co-sponsoring a game jam right now around
Oh, fun.
female game changers, where we're encouraging kids to submit projects in Make Code Arcade that are connected to impactful girls or women in their life. So we think it's really important that we do connect with those students, because identity is so important in the tech fields, and developing that self-efficacy at an early age when kids haven't been exposed to maybe some of the more negative stereotypes around coding or STEM fields, when they get to start making those decisions themselves while while they're still young enough, like it's so important and powerful for that to happen. And we love to be part of that at Code Ninjas too.
I imagine you're very busy summertime.
Very much so. We have lots and lots of summer camps. We have like really cool topics for our summer camps. You had mentioned Minecraft earlier, and we definitely have like a modding in Minecraft summer camp. We have Roblox summer camps. We have a new one this year about AI and what AI can look like. And so,
Cool.
yeah, we have some like really cool topics that get kids engaged. And we love that, many kids will come and spend an entire summer with us learning all the different topics that their local centers are offering. So it's a really cool opportunity to dive deep into a slightly different topic. Some involve coding, some just involve technology, but they're all about just that identity and being with like-minded individuals.
Well, it must be a full-time job keeping the curriculum up with the changes in the tech environment. I don't envy you that as a director of education.
It definitely is, but it's a fun challenge.
Well, tell us where people can find you or Code Ninjas and sign their kids up.
Sure. The best place to go is just codeninjas.com, where there's a location search feature right on the website. You can also learn a little bit more about our Female Game Changers Game Jam, which is happening now and is open to anyone, either someone who is an active Code Ninjas subscriber or someone who's just interested. But it's freely available to anyone, and there's some really cool prizes that kids can win as well.
Great. And I was going to tell folks that on the Cyberwise website, under our learning hubs, we have a new learning hub about coding. And there's a lot of information that you can find there about where to find Code Ninjas as well. Also, Pam's wonderful article is on our blog in addition to Substack. So 2 places where you can learn more about coding. And finally, thank you so much, Bill. I learned a lot. I was quiet this one, which was nice. But I think it's a wonderful skill for kids to learn. And I can tell my next batch of students about Code Ninjas. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me today. This has been wonderful. I appreciate sharing about coding with you all. And yeah, this is very exciting stuff. So thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you, Pam, as always.
My pleasure.
And I should probably say what our next one is about, I imagine, right? So we are going to again have our next Cyberwise Chat is about digital on-ramps, which is our new digital literacy plus SEL curriculum for 4th and 5th grade. We're going to show you actual lessons and videos and play some games. So hopefully it's another aspect of digital literacy that we want kids to learn in addition to coding. So we hope you can join us then. It is on April 23rd. So you'll be hearing from us if you're here today. And again, thank you so much for spending this time with us, Bill. We really appreciate learning more about coding and Code Ninjas. And we hope to see you all in a month. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Bill.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Hey, parents. If you enjoyed today's podcast and want to learn more, please visit our website just for you at www.cyberwise.org. But more importantly, if your kids are not already receiving digital literacy lessons in school, then you're definitely going to want to visit our other website, www.cybercivics.com, to learn more about our in-school curriculum called Cybercivics. And please tell your children's schools about it, because every student deserves to be prepared to thrive in a digital world.